You learn the truth about nations not during handshakes and summits, but when the water rises, when the ground breaks, when people scream for help. And Cyclone Ditwah has exposed that truth again, because Sri Lanka is living through one of its darkest chapters. A catastrophe so vast that the entire map of the island looks wounded. 486 dead, 341 missing, over 1.7 lakh people displaced, more than 51,000 families forced into relief centers, roads washed away, bridges snapped in half, entire communities swallowed by floods and landslides. Early economic loss estimates range from rupees 210 to 320 billion. Nearly 1% of the entire country's GDP gone in days. Opposition leaders now warn that the total cost could rise to $3 billion or more. This is not a disaster, this is devastation. But at that moment, when an entire nation was drowning in grief, who arrived? Who acted? Who stood by Sri Lanka? India. Not tomorrow, not after a committee meeting, not after a UN statement, but immediately. Launching Operation Sagar Bandhu, India's hand in the storm. Because while Sri Lanka struggled to reconnect even its basic roads, India sent rapidly deployable Bailey bridges, with 3 of them already having been installed, rebuilding lifelines that the floods had destroyed. While stranded families waited on rooftops for a miracle, the Indian Air Force helicopters swept in, airlifting children, the elderly, and the injured to safety. And while hospitals overflowed and medical access collapsed, the Arogya Maitri Bhishn Cube arrived, restoring full trauma care in flood-hit areas, treating hundreds who had nowhere else to turn. While the rains kept falling and lives kept breaking, India kept landing, aircraft after aircraft, with tents, medicines, generators, drinking water, food supplies, relief kits, and rescue teams. No forms, no conditions, no loan agreements. Just humanity, just friendship, and just responsibility. Because that is who India is. And this isn't new. India has saved Sri Lanka before. When Sri Lanka's economy collapsed in 2022, when fuel queues stretched for kilometers, when medicines ran out, when the nation was staring at bankruptcy, India stepped in with a $4 billion lifeline, the largest assistance Sri Lanka has received from any country. Fuel tankers from Chennai, food supplies from Kerala, medicines from all over India, and diplomatic support at every international forum. India did not wait for the global powers to act. India did not send lectures. India did not send demands. India just sent help. But China sent a calculator. Now let's be brutally honest. China did not help Sri Lanka. China harvested Sri Lanka. The so-called development loans were all traps. Hambantota was not a port project, it was a foreclosure notice. A sovereign asset seized because a neighbour fell into debt. Even today, as Sri Lankans struggle to rebuild their homes, China's contribution is not relief, it is repayment reminders. This disaster once again exposes the difference between a partner and a predator. While India protects Sri Lanka's future, China mortgages it. But why is India different? Well, because India does not behave like a global empire, India behaves like a civilizational power. A nation whose instinct is not domination, but duty. Not leverage, but compassion. Not exploitation, but partnership. And that is exactly why Sri Lanka is truly blessed to have India as its neighbor. Because in the darkest hours, in the deepest tragedies, there is one country in the Indian Ocean you want beside you. Not because it wants your land, not because it wants your ports, not because it wants your resources, but just because it recognizes your suffering as its own. And that country is India. And that spirit, that force guiding India's heart comes from one timeless principle, Sanatan Dharma. This is the narrative now. I am Sudhanshu Sharma. Jai Hind.